As you heard, my name is Shane, and I'm the founder of the Lab Test Company. And I'm here today to share with you part of my life journey, which has brought me to this point. As TED speakers, we're encouraged to talk from a first-person perspective and also share with you what can amount to sometimes highly personal experiences that have influenced our lives and our work. I hope that what I share with you today will in some small way resonate with you and possibly even provide you with a start point to your own inflection process. Do you remember the year that was 1996? I certainly can. It was a year that changed my life irrevocably and forever. And it was the year that I lost my brother to AIDS. The year that this disease took from me the person that I most admired and respected in this world and robbed me of my best friend. You'll recall that 1996 was not a time of affordable antiretrovirals and effective treatment for HIV/AIDS. And the absolute hopelessness that we eventually experienced as a family was something that I would not wish on my worst enemy. The experience of watching him literally disappear before our eyes was absolutely heart-wrenching. The suffering and frustration that he endured as his life was cut short absolutely humbled me so completely and absolutely. These experiences are forever with me, as they would be with anybody, and they remain a motivator for me every single day in the work that I now do. After his death, I was left with an immense and obvious... Thanks. Was that obvious? After his death, I was left with an immense and obvious sense of loss, but at the same time, I also experienced my own personal awakening. I'd never before really bothered to try and understand my purpose in this world, and for the first time, I was now asking myself questions as to the meaning of my own life. I'd also begun asking myself what this type of experience must be like for people who would be exposed to similar situations to the one that our family had faced, and yet would have no access to resources or support structures to help them deal with their circumstances as they occurred. Awful seemed to be the right answer. I decided to make a pact with myself. I was going to commit a meaningful part of my life to fight against this disease in some way, shape, or form, fight against the ignorance which contributes to its spread and the prejudice experienced by the people who are its victims. So we'll come back to this pact a few times. Initially, I thought the correct way for me to go about this would be through volunteerism, but after investigating this, I realized that at that stage I certainly wasn't emotionally equipped to make any type of meaningful contribution in this regard. Unfortunately, what then happened is that I simply ran away from the problem. I couldn't deal with the emotional consequences of what I had experienced. I moved cities, I buried myself in my work, and simply did not stop for about 6 years. I'm going to talk about denial. Okay. In my mind, though, I was always committed to what I'd promised myself that I would do and what I would do to honor the memory of my brother. So 6 years later, chance conversation happens with a very good friend's mother, and this is really what brought me back on track, although I didn't realize it at the time. She was a retired professor of education, and we were talking about things in South Africa, as we always do, South Africans, and I learned that there were 4 million kids in school in South Africa who had to attend school without the benefit of a classroom desk. Go figure. So what's the relevance of a classroom desk, you may ask? Well, I'd come to learn that our academic abilities and intellectual shaping happen somewhere between the ages of 3 and 11, and that without the benefit of an effective writing surface, children are prejudiced in these vital development areas and the development of their literacy, which obviously has a knock-on effect to the overall educational experience and academic outcome. Combine this with the fact that these kids would often have nowhere to write during their lessons, and you can begin to understand how it is an almost impossible task for educators to instill a love of learning in these children, never mind fostering a culture of excellence among the young people of our country. So, after hearing about 4 million kids without desks, I just simply couldn't believe that was the case. So I started to do some of my own research, and 6 months into the process, clearly I'm a slow learner, I had an epiphany, right? And it was something like this. First of all, what I'd seen in schools had blown me away. It was just, I could not understand how anybody could prosper under these conditions. It was also no small wonder to me that kids didn't bother about wanting to stay in school because the conditions were so absolutely appalling. My investigation process had also helped me draw the correlation between HIV/AIDS infection rates and population profile, because it was clear to me that the majority demographic was largely the same community as those where schools were directly affected by classroom desk shortages. So here comes the epiphany. Wish I could be more enthusiastic. So what if you could somehow provide these children with a portable desk, which would immediately improve their learning conditions and help them get better grades, which in turn would contribute to them being able to create a better life for themselves, and get the entire process sponsored by corporations, NGOs, or philanthropic donors. They could also be exposed to important disease management education if this information just happened to be printed on one of these portable desks. Okay, that was the aha moment. The lab test company had been born. So armed with my renewed enthusiasm and quickly, I'm on the clock. Armed with my renewed enthusiasm and vigor, I began discussing my newfound plan with people. I was shattered. The reply, for the most part, was a monologue, albeit for various reasons. It will never work. I cannot describe in enough detail how this motivated me. Here I was, ready to honor my pact, with my perfect plan in hand, no less, and only to be told time and again that I was insane. I had no business being in the education space. I wasn't qualified to offer assistance, and that it was government's problem, and so on and so on and so on. I must have polled close to 600 people. Less than 10% said they could see the possibility. What I did know was that I had experienced an incredibly steep learning curve as a result of a rather unique set of circumstances, and that if I could convey this effectively to enough people, then I would get if I could convey it effectively to enough people, then I would get the traction which was needed to make lab tests fly. So, I was off, or so I thought. After 12 months of R&D, additional, this is what had transpired. Nothing. Okay. On the plus side, no, seriously. On the plus side, field tests had revealed an incredible level of support from the schools where we had piloted the lab test project. And so nothing versus one piece of positive feedback. Okay, that's enough. That was enough for me, because if the very target audience was providing me with such positive and constructive feedback, then it must be possible somehow to engineer the balance of factors, other factors, to align with this data. I was, however, now faced with the issue of having to revisit my plan, and importantly, of how the hell I was going to finance this, because I didn't have any money left. And based on that, on the fact that I'd exhausted pretty much every type of external funding option, I didn't really have much choice. Buy house, retirement, annuity, savings, and portfolio. Just the kind of motivation you need to stay focused. But now I was sure. The next 12 months was a cert. Okay. Fast forward 12 months. My bank would still not provide me with bridging finance. The IDC had rejected my second and third application for funding. Venture capitalists and angel funders didn't want to talk to me. I had finally figured out the manufacturing methodology, but I'd wasted a huge amount of money buying the incorrect equipment. Do your homework. I definitely made progress with achieving the authorization of the education authorities, definitely. The Minister of Education was clearly not going to support my work. I'd also made progress as regards working through my cash resource. There was nothing left. So now we're 2.5 years in, first 6 months initial research, and then 12 and 12 months. And I've got a problem, because I still believe the feedback coming out of the field is telling me this product is needed. Okay? And I still believe that the reason for its existence was important. So here's where I learned a very interesting lesson. Park your ego. Okay? I didn't have any money, I didn't have any access to money, I didn't have any assets left, but I had this vision that we could achieve this. So I went to go visit my mom, and I managed to convince her to allow me to use her pension as collateral, which was an interesting kind of pressure. So 6 months after this is what's happened. My bank would still not provide me bridging finance, okay? But on the plus side, angel funders had shown some interest. I'd sorted out the manufacturing process. I'd made progress getting approval from the education authorities, albeit the chairman of the portfolio committee and not the minister herself. And additionally, I had made proper inroads on the sponsor support side and had finally secured our first corporate supporters, 4 leading multinationals and a local GSM telecoms operator. And so, with the initial envisaged 6 months R&D period now 30, we were now finally well and truly on our way. So here are a few highlights since that time way back in Q3 2004. My mom's in the clear and her pension is safe. Okay. Archbishop Desmond Tutu is our patron. 1 million children have been assisted to date, thanks to the support. Thanks to the support of more than 150 corporations and global NGOs. I became we with more than 105 local jobs created in 80 in Africa. We're active in 12 African countries. We're going live in India next year and Southeast Asia and Latin America in 2011. We have an excellent relationship with all of the relevant educational authorities, both in our country and in the other countries where we operate. We've been very fortunate enough to have won various local and international awards, and these things are really important to us from the point of view that add an immense amount of credibility to the work that we do. Yes, indeed, we've shared learning in the field of social entrepreneurship with many local and international organizations, including Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and INSEAD. But what we're doing is we're teaching people you don't need to stand on bodies to get to the top. We're teaching them a different way. And we've also established a set of big, hairy goals in line with the MDGs and are using these to motivate ourselves to 2015. So, in conclusion, the message which I would ultimately like to share with you is this. If an ordinary person like me can find sufficient motivation to tackle something that you believe worthwhile, then I say go for it. It will never happen may sound like a negative motivation, but I would honestly disagree. I'm forever grateful to anybody who ever said that to me on the basis that I am each day still becoming a better person than I promised myself more than a decade ago that I would attempt to do. And additionally, and very importantly, very importantly to me personally, I've honored my pacts and the memory of my brother. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.